we've had a lot to look at, and a lot to do, and I know the states have been struggling with various issues, but it sure is nice to have this committee and have NASDA so that we can communicate with each other, because we have the same issues. But I don't really have much to add other than that.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Commissioner Hatcher. And I think we'll go ahead and get started, because I heard Dr. Thompson join us here a few minutes ago, but we're very excited to have Dr. Beth Thompson as our guest speaker for the committee this afternoon. And I want to tell you a little bit about Dr. Thompson's background. She earned her DVM and swine medicine certification from the University of Minnesota Veterinary School in 2007. After graduation, she spent over a year as a swine production system veterinarian for a Minnesota-based company. She joined the Minnesota Board of Animal Health as a senior veterinarian in July 2008. In 2016, she was named director and state veterinarian of the Minnesota Board of Animal Health, the first female director in the organization's 113-year history. She serves as chair for numerous animal health associations. Prior to becoming a veterinarian, she earned her law degree from William Mitchell College of Law in 1992 and practiced for 10 years. She's proud of her agricultural roots and her family's fifth-generation farm in South Dakota. It's certainly my pleasure to turn it over to Dr. Thompson, but before I do, I would just like to thank Dr. Thompson for her leadership. I know my state veterinarian here in Oklahoma, Dr. Rod Hall, talked to you a lot as we prepared for some things here in Oklahoma, and we had staff and business owners from Oklahoma that traveled there to see the work that you all were doing. So, Dr. Thompson, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you're going to talk to us a little bit about how we can be better prepared for an animal disease outbreak in the U.S. from the lessons that you all kind of learned. So, Dr. Thompson, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for that invitation, and I am going to attempt, could somebody give me screen sharing ability?
You should already have that ability. If you look on the bottom of your screen, the blue or the green button says share screen, so you should be able to do that yourself.
All right, let's see here. And we'll go here. You guys all have to bear with me here. If you could see my office right now, it's we're getting ready to move. And everything has stickers on it. Can you guys see my screen right now?
Yes, we can, Dr. Thompson. We can kind of see your entire screen, so I don't know if you want to do the slideshow view possibly for your PowerPoint for us.
Yeah, there we go.
Wonderful, thank you.
Excellent, thank you for bearing with me on this. Yes, we're set to move only down 2 floors, but yes, I have red and white stickers on everything, and I had to search for a pen this morning. And thank you for bringing up Dr. Hall. For those of you who are involved with state veterinarians, and especially for the state veterinarians, if there's anybody on the call, we certainly work together as much as possible, whether it's a Saturday evening at 8 o'clock or a Monday morning at 6 a.m. I know that I can go to my fellow state veterinarians, and Dr. Hall is definitely one of them, for assistance. But thank you for the introduction, and I'll get into this important question that we have about preparing for a livestock disease event. This is one of those questions that we have that we deal with on a daily basis, and I think a lot of us, it ends up keeping us awake at night. I grew up in northeastern South Dakota, and you certainly can pick the season up there if you want to talk about spring and summer. We've got tornadoes. In the winter, of course, there's blizzards. When I was, and I've got a little tidbit up there about the tornado of 1969, I was caught in that tornado, and the twister took off the roof of my grandma's house as I was sitting in the living room with a couple of cousins. And I've also lived through, more than once a week of having no electricity because of the wonderful blizzards that we get in the Midwest. And of course, I grew up on a farm, and we had hogs. The one time I remember, we had hogs in the barn. We had over 6 days of no electricity, and we had one generator. And then for all of you who lived through something like that, you'll know that the hogs got the generator. So preparing for these situations include things like having a plan. So just so you guys know, my dad's plan whenever there was a tornado warning for our area was to go out and check the cattle. But also having equipment. And I mentioned that generator that's a really great idea. I wish we would have had 2. And most importantly, knowing who your neighbors are. So what I'd like to do is just spend a little bit of time on each one of those 3 things: having a plan, having the equipment, and knowing your neighbors. If we talk about foreign animal diseases and diseases of significance, and this slide, I've got it divided up into regulatory and farmers and ranchers. Having a plan is something that regulatory folks do on a daily basis. As the official state agency here in Minnesota dealing with animal health, we have a variety of different foreign animal disease plans and plans that fit other significant diseases. These plans range from being very specific, sometimes very, very lengthy documents, to 1-page standard operating procedures that deals with a certain disease. But that's at the regulatory level. That's at the state animal health official level or Department of Ag level. For those of you who have lived and worked through a disease event, you know that regulators are going to be focused on infected farms. And then any farms that might be geographically close to those infected farms or otherwise linked. So I would argue that as regulators, as part of our regulatory plans, we need to, on the right-hand side of that screen, get the farmers and ranchers to also plan. And I've listed some of the things I think are very important for farmers and ranchers. Now, farmers and ranchers might be geographically distanced, and we want to be able to keep them in business when we come across those foreign animal diseases or those diseases of significance. I'm reminded of TB in Minnesota in the early 2000s. For a time period, even though TB was way up in the northwestern part of the state, right next to Canada, cattle producers in all parts of our state were under increased scrutiny. They had to test more, they had to jump through additional hoops. So as regulatory officials, we need to get the disease-free portions of our states back in business as soon as possible, basing it all on science. So PINs, biosecurity PINs, for those who aren't aware, are premises ID numbers, biosecurity, farm records. Oh my gosh, if we know where those animals are moving, that is so important. Carcass disposal, all of these things and more are covered in that very last line there, secure food supply plans. So Minnesota just hired a secure food supply coordinator in April of 2020, and yes, we brought somebody on in April of this year. This person is a veterinarian, Dr. John King. He's got a wonderful background in large animal medicine, and hopefully as a point person for all secure food supply plans, he can learn lessons from one plan, say the pork plan, the hog plan, and pull that into the beef plan, and vice versa, and the well-developed poultry plans that we have. So for all of these groups, what we want to be doing is circling back to our farmers and ranchers, start building those risk assessments, start looking at the other aspects of response, and really bolstering those secure food supply plans. Communication is key. I mean, we have to make sure that those secure food supply plans reflect what's going on with our farmers and ranchers. And then we also have to have the equipment. Even though I know the state of Minnesota has foamers for poultry depopulation, and I know the state of Minnesota has foreign animal disease response kits in the hands of our veterinary staff, I still have a really long wish list. And you can talk about PPE, you can talk about machinery, you can talk about chutes and gates, and some of the pictures that I have up there. We found out in some of our disease response, the most precious resource of all It's right smack in the middle of that picture. It's water, especially during highly pathogenic avian influenza. It was so hard to get water out to some of the sites where we were doing depopulation. And in the last 6 months, what have we learned? Depopulation and disposal becomes a very, very big issue, and it becomes a big issue quickly. During COVID, even though it wasn't an animal health issue because plants were shutting down, our livestock started backing up very quickly in Minnesota. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in a few slides, but the state of Minnesota stood up some grind and compost sites for animals that were being depopulated. The list of equipment needed for that, again, different than some of the things I've already mentioned, rotor chopper, a conveyor belt, equipment for building compost piles, and the precious resource wasn't water this time, but it was carbon. And that's why I've got pictures of the bales up there. It was a precious resource that, in peacetime, we're not always thinking about some of these things. So reaching out to our counties, to our extension folks, to trucking companies, anybody and everybody that we could think of, the list was endless to get the equipment that we needed. But that actually ties into my last piece, knowing your neighbors. Neighbors are people. And for everybody that grew up in rural America, we know our neighbors. And when we talk about disease response, the neighbors that are people, they're there for us. They really are. My list of neighbors, researchers, city and county officials, diagnosticians, folks that work in our veterinary labs, folks that work at our universities, of course, all the producers and ranchers, other state agencies. I consider all of them my neighbors. And we could probably brainstorm on who should be on our neighbor list. And I suggest that everybody's emergency response staff continually update that list. But I do need to take a moment and approach the concept of knowing your neighbor from a slightly different angle. In the last 6 months, it's been hard for agriculture. It's been hard for agriculture for a longer period of time, to be quite honest. And when I think about some of the things that have continued to go on, especially like in Iowa, with the windstorm that went through there, my heart goes out to those folks. With the pandemic, we usually, as rural communities, like to come together, but that hasn't been possible because of the human illnesses. So I'd also think that, and we've done this certainly here in Minnesota, I think response staff need to think about and build out the response to include farm and rural advocacy and help. So the devastation that's carried by an individual farmer can be really overwhelming. And so when I say know your neighbor, I'm suggesting that we all play a role in keeping our farmers and ranchers safe. And if there's financial or mental health or production challenges, and that list is long, I think as regulators, we need to have the resources that can assist. So here in Minnesota, our Department of Agriculture, Commissioner Peterson, wonderful commissioner, all of his staff, they have a Coping with Farm and Rural Stress in Minnesota. It's a handout. There's also much information on their website. That wealth of information, I would push that out for all of you to take a look at. I think that's a very important part of response that we need to pay close attention to. My last slide, or second to last slide, everybody, I said I was going to mention something about carcass disposal. Lucy Hunt, who is the interim director for our emergency planning section here in Minnesota, did a wonderful seminar. I've got the link up there on the page. It's a long link, but if you go to the USDA website, and I think you just need to search for planning and implementing a carcass disposal site in Minnesota, it'll probably take you to it, or look for Lucy's name. It's just a wonderful, it's a little over an hour, and she takes you through everything that we did here in Minnesota over the last 6 months with regard to our grinding and composting, site selection, working with contractors, how to compost, how to get producers set up for drop-offs, fly, odor issues, compost spreading, cost, all of that is in Lucy's presentation. So I would recommend looking at that if you have any questions about what we did here. And this showed up on my Facebook page yesterday, and it's so true. So how can we be better prepared? It's going to take more than you. It's going to take more than me and everybody listening here today on this call. It's going to take our farming communities, all related groups, farmers, ranchers, everybody to come together. And I'll leave you with that. All of us really need to get to know our neighbors. Then that's all I have. So if anybody has any questions, again, I appreciate the opportunity to present to this group. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Thompson, for being with us this afternoon. And we might take any questions from the group. I don't know if you'd be able to see those, Molly, or if those will show up in the chat. Well, it looks.
Secretary, I'm not seeing any. Oh, I was just going to say I'm not seeing any specific questions.
Okay.
I'm certainly open if there are others that want to.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Thompson, for being on with us this afternoon, and for the continual resource that you have provided, you and your staff have provided to the rest of us as you navigated a very, very difficult situation. So thank you for taking time out to be with us this afternoon.
Thank you, and have a good rest of your meeting.
Thank you very much. Next, we are going to just quickly, I need to check our time here. We're at 2:19 or 3:19 or another time, depending on where you're virtually zooming in from. So I'll just really quickly discuss some of the acts that have been moving. And I think those are kind of really at a pause for the moment, but I think many of you have become very familiar with the Ramp Up Act, Overtime Fee Relief Bill, and then Relief to the Producers Act. And Rebecca has been engaged, I know, with members regarding where those are headed. And we all from our respective states, I have as well. So I think Rebecca will certainly keep us updated as things move along with those. But certainly if you have questions or specific interest in any of those, please let myself or Commissioner Hatcher or Rebecca know so that we can have conversations and get the right answers to you as we watch those make some progress. Hopefully that'll be beneficial for our producers. Next, I'd like to move on, and I'm hoping that maybe Max or Rebecca can show the action item that we have to address that it was submitted by WASDA. So great. It is popping up on our screen here, so I hope everyone can see that. So if everybody can see it, you see the text there of the action item, and I believe that Nebraska has a friendly amendment to offer, and I think that Bob Storant is on for Director Wellman. Bob, are you with us this afternoon? Maybe. Do we have anyone on from Nebraska?
So I'm sorry, Director, I stepped away for just a second. Are you calling on a WASDA Director?
Is that you, Celia?
This is Celia, yes.
Hi, good afternoon. We are actually addressing the action item that came from WASDA, and there is a friendly amendment, which is probably a little bit more wordsmithing than anything that Nebraska was going to present, and I know Director Wellman was not able to be on, so I think Bob was serving us as proxy, but I don't know if Bob is on with us. Are you able to tell Rebecca or Max?
Yes. Chairman, if you're talking to me, yeah, they were friendly amendments. Those of us in WASDA had no problem. Secretary Ross circulated those amendments. There was no opposition to those within our WASDA group.
Okay, Fabulous. Thank you so much, Director Gould. And Max, are you able to show that on the screen for us all to see?
Yep, I'm working on it right now. Thank you, Secretary.
Okay, great. We'll wait just a minute for that to pop up. And then I believe once that shows, then we would need a motion, correct, Max, to move those forward from the committee, correct?
That's correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, Secretary Beam, that doesn't look like any part of Kansas that I have been to, so I need to come visit if I haven't been there.
That'll look a lot like the Osage Hills.
Okay,
It's Flint Hills of Kansas.
okay. I've driven through, so I've just obviously gone to the wrong spot, so I'll have to get off the highway a little bit.
Thank you for bearing with us, Secretary. We'll have it up in just a second.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you very much, Max.
And Secretary, whenever you're ready for a motion, I would be glad to offer that on behalf of the WASDA group.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much, Director.
Secretary Arthur, I'm
Yes,
trying
ma'am.
right now. I'm just waiting on my computer.
Okay. Was it? Oh, maybe here it comes. Here we go. All right, so we can, hopefully everyone can see that on their screen. And I will note the changes. Hopefully you all can see those. It changed diversified to expanded capacity, and instead of build stronger, diversify. So just some changes there. So would certainly look for a motion to approve the action item as amended.
Madam Chairman, I would move the adoption of the action item as amended.
Thank you so much, Director. Do we have a second?
You do, Madam Chairman. This is Doug Miyamoto from Wyoming, and I would second that motion.
Thank you very much, Doug. And then I guess we'll just do a voice. All those in favor, if you would unmute. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. Thank you all, and thank you, WASDA, for submitting that and accepting the friendly amendments. And with that, we're getting kind of to the end of our time here, and we want to be cognizant of that. So I just have a few final things to mention. We want to make certain that all of you kind of have on your radar the NADPREP and NALN funding opportunities. Those are due on September 14th. If for some reason you don't have access to that link or that information, please let us know and we'll make certain to get it out to you. And then I would like to turn it over to Commissioner Hatcher. Charlie, if you have any final comments that you would like to share with the group.
Sure, about the NADPREP and the NALN lab network too. You know, that's a critical program, national program with a national strategy, and also the lab network. We've been working on that for years and years and years, and we're lucky enough to get some money through the 2018 Farm Bill, and I think everybody's excited about that. Just one comment in general, I think the human medical community could learn a lot from this national approach. From the way it's set up, and it's just, if we've learned anything from the pandemic, planning is important, disease preparedness is important, One Health is important. If we were to have a simultaneous zoonotic animal disease along with the pandemic, you can imagine what that would look like. So I think the human and animal health communities need to work together on a One Health approach moving forward.
I absolutely agree, Commissioner Hatcher. Thank you very much for those comments. And as we're getting close to our 30-minute time here, I just want to say thank you. I'm not sure if Commissioner Gearing is on, but certainly appreciate the opportunity to serve in this capacity. Doug, I didn't know that this would be such quite an exciting committee this spring, but certainly appreciate you giving me the opportunity. Thank you so much, everyone that has been on. We'll look for some additional opportunities to gather our processing work group together. I know several states have gotten CARES funding and would love to gather everyone up to see how that's going in your state and what we can learn from one another on how you're allocating and distributing those funds. So thank you so much, everyone, for being with us. Thank you, Commissioner Hatcher, for being team member with me here. Thank you, Max and Rebecca and all the NASDA staff, and I see Dr. Glenn on as well. So thank you all. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll look forward to our next session here in a little bit. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Secretary.